Hi student, let's try to understand the respiration in human, how the respiration takes place. We have discussed nutrition in organism in the last sections. The food material taken during the process of nutrition is used in cell to provide energy for various life process. Diverse organisms do this in the different way. Some use oxygen to break down glucose completely into carbon dioxide and water. Some uses other pathway that do not involve oxygen. In all cases, the first step is to break down of the glucose, a 6 carbon molecule into 3 carbon molecule called pyruvate. This process takes place in cytoplasm. Further, the pyruvate may be converted into ethanol and carbon dioxide. This process takes place in yeast during fermentation. Since this process takes place in the absence of air, it is called anaerobic respiration. Breakdown pyruvate using oxygen taking place in the mitochondria. In the mitochondria process, break up the 3 carbon pyruvate molecule to give 3 molecule of carbon dioxide. The other product in water, since this process takes place in presence of oxygen, is called aerobic respiration. The release of energy in this aerobic process is a lot greater than the anaerobic process. Sometimes when there is a lack of oxygen in our muscle cell, another pathway for breakdown of pyruvate is taken. Here, the pyruvate is converted into lactic acid, which is also a 3 carbon molecule. The buildup of lactic acid in our muscle during the sudden activity causes cramp. The energy released during the cellular respiration is immediately used to synthesize a molecule called ATP, which is used to fuel all other activities in cell. In this process, ATP is broken down, giving rise to fixed amount of energy, which can derive the endothermic reaction taking place in the cell. ATP is the energy currency for the most cellular process. This the release energy during the process of respiration is used to make an ATP molecule from ADP, an inorganic phosphate. ADP plus phosphate, it will give the ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Endothermic process in all cell then use this ATP to derive the reaction when the terminal phosphate linkage in ATP is broken using water. The energy equivalent to 30.5 kilojoule per mole is released. Think of how battery can provide energy for many different kind of uses. It can be used to obtain mechanical energy, light energy, electrical energy, and so on. Similarly, ATP can be used in the cell for the contraction of muscle, protein synthesis, conduction of nervous impulse, and many other activities. Since the aerobic respiration pathway depend on oxygen, aerobic organisms need to ensure that there is sufficient intake of oxygen. We have seen that plant exchange gases through the stomata, and the large intercellular spaces ensure that all cells are in contact with air. Carbon dioxide and oxygen are exchanged by diffusion. Here, they can go into cell or away from them and out into the air. The direction of diffusion depends upon the environmental condition and the requirement of the plant. At night, when there is no photosynthesis occurring, CO2 elimination is the major exchange activity going on. During the day, CO2 generated during respiration is used up by photosynthesis. Here, there is no CO2 release instead of oxygen release in the major event at this time. Animals have evolved different organs for the uptake of oxygen from the environment and getting rid of the carbon dioxide produced. Terrestrial animal can breathe the oxygen in the atmosphere, but animals that live in water need to use oxygen dissolved in the water. Now, since the amount of dissolved oxygen is fairly low compared to the amount of oxygen in the air, the rate of breathing in aquatic organism is much faster than that seen in terrestrial organisms, fishes like the water through their mouth and force in past the gills where the dissolved oxygen take up by blood. Terrestrial organisms use oxygen in the atmosphere for respiration. This oxygen is absorbed by different organs in the different animal. All these organs have the structure that increase the surface area which is in contact with the oxygen rich atmosphere. Since the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide has to take place across this surface, this surface is very fine, delicate. In order to protect the surface, it is usually placed within the body, so there have to be a passage that will take air to the area. In addition, there is a mechanism for moving the air and out this area where the oxygen is absorbed. In human being, air is taken into the body through the nostril. The air passes through the nostril, is filtered by fine air that line the passage. The passage is also lined with the mucus, which help in the process. From here, the air passes through the throat and into the lungs. Rings of the cartilage are present in the throat. These ensure that air passage does not collapse. Within the lungs, the passes divide into smaller tubes which finally terminate into balloon-like structure which is called the alveoli. Singular is alveolus. The alveoli provide a surface where the exchange of gases takes place. The wall of the alveoli contain extensive network of blood vessels, as we have seen in earlier years when we breathe in, we lift our ribs and flatten our diaphragm, and the chest cavity becomes larger. As a result, because of this, air is sucked into the lungs and fill the expanded alveoli. The blood brings carbon dioxide from the rest of the body for release into the alveoli, and the organ in the alveolar air is taken up by blood in the alveolar blood vessels to be transported to all the cell in the body. During the breath cycle, when air is taken in and let out, the lungs away contain a residual volume of air so that there is a sufficient time for oxygen to be absorbed and for the carbon dioxide to be released. When body size of animal large, the diffusion pressure alone cannot take care of oxygen delivery to all part of the body. Instead, respiratory pigment take up oxygen from the air in the lungs and carry it to tissue which are sufficient in oxygen before releasing it. In human being, the respiratory pigment is hemoglobin, which has a very high affinity for oxygen. This pigment is present in the red blood corpuscle. Carbon dioxide is more soluble in water than oxygen is, and hence is mostly transported in the dissolved form of our blood. So this is what, if the alveolar surface were spread out, it would cover about 80 meter square. How much do you think the surface area your body is? Consider how deficient exchange of gases becomes because of the large surface available for the exchange to take place. If diffusion were to move oxygen in our body, it is estimated that it would take 3 years for molecule of oxygen to get to our torch from our lungs. Aren't you glad that we have the hemoglobin? Smoking is injurious to health. Lungs carriers is one of the common causes of the death in the world. The upper part of respiratory tract is provided with a small hair-like structure called cilia. The cilia help to remove the germs, dust, and other harmful particles from the inhaled air. Smoking destroys these hair, due to which germs, dust, smoke, and other harmful chemical enters lung and causes infection, cough, and even lung cancer. So this is the respiration in our body, student. Thank you very much for watching.